As you know, I spend a lot of time playing bad mobile ripoffs on the App Store. When playing a ripoff game, I tend to expect a certain level of jankiness. After all, they're often made by indie developers that are just starting out. These might even be their first games. But out there, in the creeping underworld of the App Store, sits a company that built its entire empire off of stolen titles. A company called Gameloft. If you've spent enough time scrolling the App Store like me, there's practically a guarantee that you've seen this logo before. I even covered a Gameloft game before by accident. A long time ago, I talked about this game called Bliss Brigade, a very clear ripoff of TF2. Well, it turns out that game was made by Gameloft. Now that got me thinking, just how much inspiration does Gameloft take from other games? So today, I'll be playing a handful of Gameloft games to figure out whether these are in fact ripoffs, and more importantly, if their higher budget makes their ripoff games any better as games, over the hundreds made by solo developers. Also, I'll just mention it here, I'm not going to be talking about Asphalt because it looks boring, even though that game is what the company's known for. No. Instead, we'll be starting with Gangstar New Orleans. At first glance, this seems to be a GTA ripoff. But is it really? Who knows? Maybe the entire GTA franchise was stolen from Gameloft. When did this game come out exactly? Oh, 2017. And the first one released in 2006. Okay, so maybe GTA did come first. But that alone doesn't mean it's a ripoff. We'll have to see in the gameplay. I get on the game and the first thing I realize is that they are Canadian, so it's at very least French. Then we get a cutscene introducing us to the world. In Gangstar New Orleans, we play as this clown guy. And wow, he doesn't look right. The game tells us to meet up with Elsie, so we run up to her and meet her. She's also a clown. I see a homeless man. Then someone starts shooting up a store, but don't worry, I got him, guys.
You are not getting away with our payroll, buddy.
He then started getting away with our payroll. After some of the worst gunplay I've seen in my life, I stole his car and started getting away from the cops. I also ran over the homeless man from earlier. You could really tell that these guys are used to making racing games. Not because the driving is particularly good, but instead because it's the only thing that doesn't feel really cheap. After a cutscene that looks like it came straight out of Mafia City, I am now just watching my homies shooting a guy. Oh, wait, they weren't my friends? This visual style reminds me a lot of Lily's Garden, which is not the aesthetic you should be giving to a GTA clone. To add to the vibe, I got to buy a house, and it came in a massive present. After the tutorial ends, the game turns into a collection of different types of levels, most of which not living up to the already pretty low excitement of the tutorial, with little mini games like shooting guns and driving cars being the backbone of the game. But not all of it. There's a level where you shoot civilians and track down a target, and officers show up to stop you. When fighting against them, I got flashbacks to the format of Black Ops Zombies from back in the day, which is funny because after the cops went away, a bunch of zombies showed up. So clearly the game does a good enough job at varying the missions. After eliminating your target, you even get an option to go around the map with any explicit goal, just like the real GTA, letting you do whatever in the sandbox you're in. Overall, this one is definitely not beating the ripoff allegation. However, I will say that the game itself is higher quality than most ripoffs, as you'd expect from a company that made 321 million euros in 2022. Clearly they have the budget to be making this, if not, literally anything better. Next we have Dragon Mania Legends. Now this one's just shameless. Obviously it's just trying its best to be Dragon City, and to be fair, it's kind of hard to do this style of game any differently. All of the world-building simulation games just steal from each other anyway, so it shouldn't really matter, except for the fact that it's the exact same game. First thing the game wants is my age. Again. I didn't mention this in the last game, but it was exactly the same, which is very weird. Then we see a dragon egg, open it up, and now we have a little fire dragon. We feed it with juicy fruit, and its power increases. Getting a dragon and feeding it for it to become bigger, that sounds very similar to another game about dragons with this exact same style and presentation, but surely it has to be a coincidence. We got another dragon, this time for a different element. Then we get a farm down to make some food. It just keeps getting worse and worse, doesn't it? Then we take our dragons and breed them to get a new one. Oh my god, it's literally the exact same game. The only difference is that in this game, there isn't a Mr. Beast or Dream Dragon. which means it honestly might be better. But yeah, overall, it's the same video game. Gameloft doesn't even seem to be trying here. Next is Sniper Fury, shooting game. There are quite a lot of sniper games on the App Store, most of which are ripoffs of the Sniper Elite series. Let's see if this one is any different. The game opens up with a cutscene of people dying. It actually looks pretty cool. The silhouettes look way more stylized and unique than the rest of the more generic art styles that the company is accustomed to. Then, all the hyping up immediately gets ruined by a loading screen that looks terrible. Welcome, Sniper. Tell us about yourself. Oh, of course. My age. Location, social security number, credit card. Then some old man starts telling me how to play the video game. Wow! That was so realistic, I almost thought I was there. So the gameplay is fairly straightforward. Every level, you're tasked with killing a specific enemy. You align your crosshair and take a shot.
I hit his arm, why is he bleeding from there?
It's the exact same tried and true formula done many times before on the exact same platform. Sometimes you get to use different weapons, like this assault rifle, which naturally puts you in different situations, but the game still stays in the same format. You can't move around, so the only difference between levels is whether or not the enemies are shooting at you while you're shooting at them. Between levels, the scenery changes, but not much else. Each one does have a different briefing though, but again, new paint on a stale gimmick. The controls could be better, and the same could be said about the graphics, but all in all, it at least does the job. It's a shame the game didn't have more in common with the opening cutscene, as it looked pretty cool. As for whether or not it's a ripoff, it plays about the same as every other generic mobile sniper game. It's fine. This one's called Journeys. Romance stories. It's episode. It's just episode. You know that one game with the terrible ads? Yep, that's the one. Starting off, we have yet another age selector. Why is this company so obsessed with my age? I choose my name and now I'm here.
I made it!
I don't know where it is and where I am and who is this? So just like episode, this isn't much of a game. You do get to choose elements of the story, like your love interest, but most of the time you're just idly tapping the screen. The narrative itself is as simple as it gets. Man moves to New York City to live with woman, but then he meets another woman. I know, pretty next level. Then he meets man. It seems like most of the choices in this game are choosing the many different love interests your character runs into, which is immensely funny as I've been trying to reject them as much as possible. My goal for this game is to make the absolute worst choices, so I'm gonna lie to the man who's gonna hire me. Not like it matters much anyways, it's no matter what you do, the game pretty much just forces you down the same path. Oh no, it turns out the two other love interests are related. This is truly some deep drama that is going to keep me playing this game forever. To end off this video, we have Modern Combat 5, which title-wise seems suspiciously similar to Modern Warfare. After a cutscene telling us about the World Liberation Army launching a surprise attack on Venice, the game then shows me a splash of text with exactly the same thing. Then, after giving the company my personal information again, we get to start actually playing the game. The intro to the mission looks surprisingly professional, until the water in my eyes lets me see the fourth dimension.
Strike 2 to Monarch. Target eliminated. Confirm extraction location. Over.
Hold up.
Where did you come from? After shooting some bad guys, we leave the building and start shooting more bad guys. But luckily for me, bullets are more of a suggestion than anything else. Then we make it to a boat, and more bad guys come, and now they're in boats. Shooting at this time is slightly different, as now it's on a rail section. After the mission, we got a story cutscene. And while it's not inherently Call of Duty, putting the two side by side, they look pretty similar. Crazy that this hospital is conveniently designed to be as linear as possible. A couple levels later, and I'm no longer as bulletproof as before, huh? But I will say, this fake out they do a little later is actually worth it. Overall, the gameplay is pretty straightforward, just a watered down Call of Duty formula. This game is probably the closest thing I've ever seen to an actual Call of Duty ripoff. Even comparing this to the ripoff videos about Call of Duty, which were really just excuses for me to cover FPS games, the way this game is designed isn't just strikingly similar, it's intentional. I'm honestly shocked a company like Gameloft can even exist. At best, everything they've ever made is just directly derivative, and at worst, just blatant stealing. Every game I played on this video is a worse version of something I've already seen before. And seeing how successful Gameloft is, it's almost demotivating to see them doing so well without a single original idea. It's a microcosm of mobile games at large, which all slowly became homogenized in the same melting pot of ideas that led to hyper-casual sludge by Voodoo. And that makes me a little sad.
I'm ordering a birthday cake, and the guy wants to know how old Meg is. I didn't know what...